Well, this is going to be the start of I guess, series of videos, recordings, I guess, covering reviewers who have talked about the game Dungeon Siege. This is in preparation for my own video covering the game in response to what I've noticed is a lack of like deep understanding about the game. There's only been one review out of I think seven that I've seen that has like come close to fully encapsulating like what the game is, how the systems work, etc., etc. Um, but there's still stuff left to be talked about with the game and whatnot. And um, with that being said, this is Pixelsza's video, Dungeon Siege, when Microsoft challenged Diablo. I will be putting the link in the description of this posted video. But just a little preface, I have seen this video before multiple times, and this video is the one that definitely solidified my wishes to make my own video about it. It actually came out, I believe, this year, 2025, but it did not. It did leave much to be desired, and still seeing that one of my childhood games is still being talked about to this day, and there are still inadequacies, I would say, still things that are not properly being covered or discussed. This video is definitely the one that has motivated me. So, without further ado, let's just get right into it.
In the shadow of Diablo's throne, Dungeon Siege dared to do better. Backed by Microsoft, armed with new tech, and launched during the golden age of RPGs. It had everything it needed to compete, and then it disappeared. Forgotten by most, but not by me. Today,
This is something that I think is a bit of an interesting claim. I don't think that this game is really forgotten. It's throughout the years, it's been getting videos covering it, like Ross from Accursed Farms. You might know him. He did the Stop Killing Games movement, and hopefully that will see a little bit of traction. But Ross covered it like 9 years ago, and that video has like 1 million views on it. There's a review from Gamers, which I think has like 500,000 views on it, and that was a little bit more recent. But there's some videos that were made like last year, and I think in 2022 or something like that. People still do talk about this game. It never gained as much like traction as like Diablo or Baldur's Gate, which you can argue that Baldur's Gate 3 is, there's a difference between Larian's Baldur's Gate 3 and the original Baldur's Gate 1 and 2, especially when you look at the time between them, you know. But this game isn't forgotten by all except for you. I think that is a little bit disingenuous.
we are going back to see what Dungeon Siege got right and where it went completely off the rails, and why, despite everything, I still love it, even if, throughout the game, not a single dungeon is being sieged.
I I don't know why we're saying that. You're showing even some clips earlier where it's like you're in the final dungeon of the boss, where it's like you literally went through the dungeon of a castle. Like there was literally a scene. If we like back this up 2 seconds, this is actively a dungeon that you are going through, and like sieging. Unless you're gonna be pedantic and say, oh, well, it's not a military siege upon a castle or whatever. It's just like, no, like you're actively in a dungeon in the footage that you're showing here. And there's other dungeons throughout the game that you go through as well. It's, ugh.
completely off the rails, and why, despite everything, I still love it, even if, throughout the game, not a single dungeon is being sieged. So let's grab a potion, set up formation, and revisit a game that dared to challenge a titan. I start off on my humble farm, peaceful and quiet, until I notice my neighbor looking worse than usual. Naturally, I rush over to see what's going on.
The Krug are attacking!
You know when you ask your mom for orcs from Lord of the Rings and she says, we have orcs at home. Yeah, we got the Krug, and now they're burning
This is something that is interesting, is like the comparing everything to Krug's sort of discussion. I know Patrician TV, and I will be citing him, I think, throughout this review, at least some of his ideas. He is currently working on a project for Fallout 3 and Fallout New Vegas, and I believe he was watching H Bomber Guy's review of Fallout 3, and I think that's where like the comparison of things to orcs started, with the super mutants in Fallout 3 and how like they were essentially just big orcs. Now that might just be for the Fallout series of comparing super mutants to orcs, but yeah, it's when you write something as amazing as the Lord of the Rings and the whole like legendarium that Tolkien wrote, you're gonna find these sorts of similarities and whatnot sprinkled throughout different systems. But yeah, so like granted,
everything down. We need to warn the nearby village of Stonebridge. There's a bridge at the edge of the forest that should take us there. So I grab a few tools.
I'm not even sure if I don't think your neighbor tells you that there's a bridge at the end of this, so it's very interesting because you as a player don't know in this moment that there is a bridge at the end of the forest that leads you to Stonebridge. I don't think it explicitly says that, and I don't think your neighbor says that, but that it is true, evidently, when you get there. It's a little out of sequence.
Hammer, farm grade murder gear, and set out across the fields. That's when I run into my first Krug. Your first combat experience is, well, I'll let Josh Drive Hayes say it best.
Behold, combat.
You start with a basic melee weapon, so everyone's first fight is more or less the same, and it's...
So, I guess we'll start with one of our first notes here, specifically about game combat, or starting combat. And then everyone has a melee weapon. I guess we'll just start with that quote. The issue that I take here is, like, as we just saw in the video, you could instantly just grab this fire shot that's on the ground, and if you want, you can just start with combat magic as well. And something that I do know is like he also, the Krug that you kill can drop a bow and can drop like zap the spell. You get a bow, fire shot, and whatever melee weapon. Like, so you start with the knife, but behind your house is like a whole bunch of farming tools that you can grab and use. And like, I always grab the dull pitchfork because of the block chance on it. It's actually really good in the early game. But the first Krug you kill is only with a melee weapon, but very quickly you can switch up your playing field. It's not like you're locked into, oh, you have to kill these 5 Krug before you can choose whatever alternative option. No, as you can see, there's a spell on the ground. You can start combat magic immediately. The Krug drops a bow. Zap usually drops in this area too, so you're not exactly, which is a nature magic spell, so you're not exactly just like locked in to melee combat. It's not like that.
Combat.
So everyone's first fight is more or less the same, and it's not the best first impression. Dungeon Siege uses an auto combat system. Instead of manually swinging your weapon, you click once and your character handles the rest. It's designed to give you breathing room for party management and tactics later in the game. But in this opening moment, you just stare in horror as your character misses over and over again.
All right, missing over and over again. We are just going right into it. Yeah, it's interesting, you know, the expectations that we have for a farmer, you know, when he's like first picking up his weapon. That's one of the genius designs about this game is your farmer starts with 10 10 10, so like average stats across the board. There's, you know, there's no pre-class selection, I think, as you in this video note. But yeah, you're just literally John average dude that is just picking up weapons and going. So that's sort of reflected in the combat. It's just like Morrowind, one of the games that you showed on screen earlier, with your different like your different weapon focuses and weapon skills that you can, you know, major and minor, I believe, is the system there. You don't start out as being the best swordsman. You're going to miss in combat, and that is also reflected in this game, you know, with a melee weapon. You're going to miss in combat. We can break down the system behind that and the like how the engine actually calculates hitting and missing. It does have to do with your melee skill, which will increase and get better over time, especially in comparison to the enemies that you're fighting. But, you know, we'll see if you cover it first.
No explanation, just whiffs. What's happening here is tied to the game's underlying stat system. You've got 3 primary stats: strength, affecting your raw damage; dexterity, improving your attack speed, accuracy, and evasion; and intelligence, that governs your magic skills and mana pool. And it's not just your party using these stats, enemies have them too. So when you're swinging at a crowd with a decent dexterity and your stats are still baby tier, expect to miss a lot. And here's the thing,
Good.
You don't even...
Yeah, good. The to-hit calculation's a little bit more complicated than that, and I don't think it's even fully figured out yet, because like dexterity and intelligence also has a part to play, specifically with melee combat. But that's somewhat of an explanation, but it's just like, oh, well, yeah, I don't expect my farmer at level 1 to hit everything on repeat.
Care because the music kicks in. In my humble opinion, the music is one of the most underappreciated elements of Dungeon Siege, composed by the legend.
I don't know where we are getting that statement or where we're qualifying that statement. There are videos of the OST posted online. There's like individual tracks from the OST posted online as well. Any review, like you go and look at the reviews and you go at like and look at, even at playthroughs, like a Irradiated Stalker's playthrough, the comments where people are just like, oh my gosh, the music is so nostalgic. I don't think that it's like overlooked or understated at all. It's definitely, the music is one of the strongest elements of Dungeon Siege, I would say.
Jeremy Soule, the same mind behind Oblivion, Guild Wars, and Knights of the Old Republic. It's beautiful, and it makes you forget you just missed 90% of your attacks.
Yeah, it's the joke's getting a bit old.
So I push on through farmlands, fighting off Krug, bugs, frogs, and angry dogs. Classic.
Hang on,
Eventually,
wait. You just call
frogs and
the mangler is not a frog. It's nothing like a frog. You could see the 2 legs and the fishtail on the bottom. It's like a water dog, if anything. I don't know why we're comparing this to a frog.
So I push on through farmlands, fighting off Krug, bugs, frogs, and angry dogs. Classic. Eventually, I reach a neighboring farm where I find a survivor. He's holed up in his house and asks me to clear out his cellar. Fair trade. I kill Krug, I get loot. And already, I'm seeing potential inventory problems on the horizon. With that done, I head deeper into the woods. More Krug, more bodies, more loot. Then I find it. Loot behind a waterfall. Instant 10 out of 10. Eventually, I reach the
Hey, finding that 24 gold, it's always worth it. You know, it's always a good pick-me-up.
bridge to town, or what's left of it.
They torched this here bridge, and then set to driving a wagon caravan across while it was still a-burning.
And there's nothing left but burning debris floating downriver. It's a small detail, but one I genuinely love. But that means the direct route is gone. If we want to get
Here's that bridge that he mentioned earlier, and yeah, throughout the game, there are like little storytelling instances like this where you can just see what you can just see something which like informs the story and the setting around it, and it's very environmental storytelling, that's the term. It's one of the things that I wished Dungeon Siege did more of, and from what it does do, it made me want to learn more about Dungeon Siege. And while that might go on to a conversation of like what Dungeon Siege 2 became after Dungeon Siege 1, it is one of the more interesting parts of Dungeon Siege where it's like it does kind of like make you curious about what happened, or curious, you know, more eager to explore, you know, the world itself. So yeah, good observation.
It's a stone bridge, we're gonna have to go the long way through the old crypt, and you already know what's waiting there. The world of Dungeon Siege, absolutely beautiful, and honestly, it still kind of holds up in its own way. Back then, a fully 3D world like this was a rarity. The ability to pan and rotate your camera to admire your character from different angles felt revolutionary. And it wasn't just a tech flex.
It's also just like really helpful for the combat design of the game, like, you know, being able to rotate your camera when you're controlling individual characters, or like placing individual characters, or casting different spells in specific locations. Super helpful. Very, very helpful. So we have like at around Aldous 452 camera, because that is, he does make
the art
points
direction carries all the way through the game, with winding paths, ruined buildings, and dense forests that make it feel like a world you can actually walk through. Comparing that to Diablo 2 or Baldur's Gate, both of which were released just a couple years prior. Best of all, no loading screens. The entire game is one massive continuous world, which for
I know that's the case with Baldur's Gate, and like, because this game in context is typically talked about next to Diablo, obviously, like the hack and slash sort of genre, and Baldur's Gate in regards to like the greater RPG like genre that was coming out at the time, and like going to different areas in Baldur's Gate, like you'd have a loaded map, and then you would like typically walk across that map and then walk to the edge of that map to reload like another square map, or you load into a specific town or whatnot, or when you walk into one of the buildings, you know, you're loading a specific map for that building. So yeah, that is one of the things that the designers of this game did try to sell, is like, hey, no loading screens. It was a big part of their marketing.
For the early 2000s was genuinely impressive. When I finally reach the graveyard, my suspicions are confirmed. No 2000s fantasy RPG is complete without skeletons.
Skeletons are cool, man.
According to the story, the Krug have figured out necromancy, which is a bit much. These are the same creatures who burn bridges and then try and cross them, so raising the dead feels like a pretty big leap in intelligence.
I don't exactly see what you're saying here. The story does cover it, and I think you talk about it later on, so I will talk about the story and the narrative justification for it later on. But yeah, no, I can believe in a world where there are Krugs that are just like crazy looters and all this sort of stuff, and then there's a small number of them that are able to cast like basic magic and, you know, like raising skeletons, for example, which is what we're seeing here. I don't think is a really complex or high form of necromancy, at least as it's depicted in the setting of Dungeon Siege. And in general, really, I think lower level necromancy spells typically involve raising like base skeletons or base zombies, you know. Like if you look at like Skyrim games, like the different conjurations that you can do, they typically like level up the creature itself that you're able to raise, you know, like making the creature more powerful when you raise it, rather than just being like, hey, here's a generic skeleton that holds a mace, you know.
But hey, maybe we'll get answers later.
Okay, wait, that's actually important, is at 6 we do have rug necromancy discussion, because I know for a fact this is one of the things that, when I first watched this, bothered me.
After clearing out the crypt, I ran into my first boss. A massive gargoyle-like statue that springs to life, but luckily it's not that threatening. Victory secured, I met their hostage, Eulora, a scribe who shared my suspicions on the whole necromancy issue.
These thick-headed brutes barely understand fire. How can they have now mastered necromancy?
And she is eager to join my party.
Well, I mean, the base of her suspicions is that, like, not that this is... She's hinting to an underlying issue here. She's not saying, oh, it can't be done. She's saying, like, the fact that this is evident means that there's something greater that's going on. You know, that's sort of what her dialogue hints towards.
Welcome aboard. I hand her a bow, strip her of armor, as tradition demands, and we're off to Stonebridge. Along the...
It is actually really funny, because the best armor before... I believe it's riveted armor that you get off of her, which is like 16 defense, is something called Atlan's armor, which you get from the farms when you kill a bear in like a sort of like tucked away cave. And it's like 10 defense, plus 5 HP is the magical enchantment, is plus 5 max HP. So yeah, no, that's definitely true. She just literally spawns with better armor than you, and it's... if you're playing melee, it's always better just to take her armor. Even if you're playing a caster, it's always better to take her armor, to be honest.
We run into armored Krug, who seem slightly more organized, but not by much, so they fall like the rest. Dungeon Siege's combat remains simple. There is no active abilities, no cooldowns, no hotbars filled with skills to manage, just weapons, stats, and the occasional spell. At first, this feels like a weird decision, especially in the beginning when combat can be a little slow. But once your party grows, and especially when you're managing 6, 7, even 8 characters, you're suddenly grateful you're not micromanaging cooldowns. It leans...
This is a fair point, because like the opening bit of the game is a little bit too long for my taste for what the game really strongly captures, and in regards to its combat. And it is like a party controlling game. So like the fact that like the first, I don't know, like hour at most, for like maybe like 45 minutes of gameplay, is just limited to 1 and then eventually 2 characters. It is a bit sad. you do kind of wish that you could like pick up maybe maybe like 2 or 3 more people a little bit sooner on, or at least like shift Stonebridge to be a little bit sooner. So like I do understand that criticism, but I don't find it as grating just to play with like 2 players. It's just more so like it's more so just like the game really does pop off the more characters you have.
Into strategy over spectacle, and while it works most of the time, even in major fights like bosses, it can still feel a little flat. By the time we reach Stonebridge, the village has just survived a siege. Broken walls, scorched buildings, and shell-shocked survivors scattered across the town. I deliver my warning, the Krug are attacking, which feels a bit late, considering they're probably still wiping blood off the front gates.
Hang on, let me just pause this for a time instance here.
And I can't help but feel that I'm just being insensitive, but oh well.
This is... Hey, I am a farmer from the farmlands, and I'm coming to the major town to tell them that Krug are attacking the farmlands. I don't think that's a matter of insensitivity or not. It's just like pretty generic, like, hey, we're having this issue out in the outskirts of society. Let's go to the main town and see what the hell's going on. Let's just try to do that. Your neighbor literally says, find Giorn, who's this guy that he's about to talk to. But it's not it's not insensitive to say, hey, they're also attacking the farmlands, to people that are like guards and like actually in charge of making sure civilization functions in the kingdom that they are in. You know, like I never understood that point. It's just, yeah, like they were just attacked, and it's just like, well, yeah, you're communicating that you also were attacked, and you're informing these people of what's going on. It's not a matter of selfishness here.
Is where I meet Giorn, who's eager to join my cause, probably because of my insensitive jokes, so yes, you're coming with us. We explore the town, speak to some of the locals, and restock supplies. This, to me, is where the real game begins. Everything before this was just the tutorial.
I do agree with this point. Here, like, everything before Stonebridge is the, like, everything before Stonebridge is the tutorial, essentially. It is, like, that isn't to undermine it, either. Like, it is still important. What goes on in the beginning is still important, because, like, it does, like, set the stage for some of the narrative, as limited as the narrative is, and as limited as the world building is. There is world building and a story in this game, as much as reviewers like to just, you know, glaze over it or say that it's like not really there. But again, in regards specifically to the game mechanics of like preparing at the shop or grabbing people like to form a party and to like push forward, like, you know, you're like, we made it to the next base camp, so let's get set and ready to go through the next dungeon or two that we have to, the next area or two that we have to. Yeah, the Stonebridge is the launch off point for that. Yeah, definitely do agree with that point.
This is the first time you get to actually build a party. I decide to run 2 melee fighters up front to absorb the damage, 2 range DPS in the middle, and 1 healer at the back. Naidi joins us as our final ranged companion, and Zed, our local medic, gets promoted to full-time support. We're given our next mission: travel north to Glacier, deliver the warning to the Overseer, and help whoever we can along the way.
I guess this is, I'll say this now, I did notice him selling his potions to John the blacksmith, to the guy on the screen, and I know this will come up later, so I'll just put a footnote in it, but yeah, potions, very important to the game. I hope that we will remember that and utilize that moving forward.
Everyone gets some fresh gear, packs up, and we head out. The long road north begins. For all its beauty, Dungeon Siege's world doesn't really feel lived in. You move through it, yes, but you don't really feel connected to it. There is no map, no sense of where you are in the grander world, no visual cues to ground you, no here's where you started, here's where you are going. Even a
So I'll have to put, I can put this note right here. I'm fine with that because it's surrounding this timestamp. But disconnected from the world / no map. I'll just wait until he actually shows the map.
simple overview would have helped give context to the journey, and
So
even a simple overview
with this, when you bought the game, when you bought the game, if you bought like the CD box that it came in and everything, the map is something that you did get in it. I agree. I think it's a fair criticism to criticize the lack of there being a map in the game, or at least some sort of geographical like reference point for you to use, even if it doesn't reveal everything like this, where it's just like, oh yeah, the Cliffs of Fire are before Dragon's Wrath, which is before Castle Ebb. Like, I don't think you need to see that if you're in Stonebridge, but I do think that having like a map where it's just like, even if it just shows you like the lands around Western Cross, and so like you see the farmlands, and then you see the Crypt of the Sacred Blood and whatnot, I do think that would be better. But in regards to feeling like disconnected from the world, like, or that like you don't inhabit it, it's just something that I notice is you haven't read 3 of the lore books that you could have by now. At least you haven't talked about any of them, and whether or not you want to say like, oh well, like reading text for lore is lame, and it's just like, to an extent I agree, but like that is part of where feeling like you're inhabiting the world comes from, because like it's like, oh, I'm actually reading what the Crypt of the Sacred Blood is. I'm actually reading who Etan Stonebridge was, who, you know, was this traitor and like built this town and whatnot. Oh, I'm actually reading about Western Cross, you know, the place that I'm about to go into, and like that I have to go through because the door to Glitterdelve Mine, you know, that pass has been blocked due to like falling rubble and whatever. Like there are things in the game that can help flesh out the world and make it feel a little bit more alive and real, and that you're a part of it. But also, like, just even in Stonebridge, where you're setting out from, in the windmill, you can get like an unlisted quest and talk to a and talk to the lady in the windmill, and she tells you, oh hey, there's a whole bunch of scrub, which are like the bugs that are in the ground that we actually are, they're in this area. These are black scrub in this area, but she talks about like, hey, they're all over the beach, so it's really hard for us to get fish and whatnot. Could you like go down there and rid the scrub? So you can actually, while you're in Stonebridge, walk down to the beach, kill the scrub, and then go back to her. And it isn't like an official quest in your log, but she'll like say, thanks for doing that. So like there are smaller different things that make the world arguably feel lived in. And then you could also talk to Ordus, who's in Stonebridge. He's outside of his burned house. He'll ask you, hey, can you go pick up an axe from the guard tower where you're about to be traveling in this sequence? It's down underneath the tower and like in the barracks of it, you know, because he left it there. So there, like, it's not, this game in regards to its side quests and whatnot isn't perfect, but like there are attempts to make it feel lived in and real. Like you can, I think we should be able to like call them out, and if you want to criticize them, which there is room for criticism there, do so. But like we're just not even treating it, we're treating the game as if it has nothing in that capacity.
would have helped give context to the journey. And no, I'm not talking about the added map, that's just an overview camera. Take that burnt bridge outside Stonebridge for an example. Imagine if you can actually come up upon it on the other side. How amazing it would feel to get a glimpse.
I do
of
agree
where
with that
you
point,
were.
by the way.
Instead, you move forward, and once you're through an area, that's it. There is no respawn, no returning life, just empty trials behind you. And that's the core issue. It's a beautiful world, but you're not inhabiting it, you're clearing it. Our next destination was Glitterdelve Mine, but surprise, the road is blocked, and we're forced to detour.
Alright, I guess I can pause this here. You're not living in it, you're clearing it. I think we can go back to that, and that's like 9:53. Not living in it, clearing it. It's funny because different reviewers will talk about this positively or negatively, because it's just like, oh, once you clear, like, on the positive side, it's like, oh, okay, this is refreshing that you don't, when you like walk through an area, you don't have to like kill every mob or run past every mob and have to deal with like aggro and whatever. And from this, it's just like, there's a criticism of, oh, after you kill the things here, it's like no longer lived in. I don't want to use this as like a hyper example, but like there are pixies that do float about. There are animals that you can see, like deer and like little I think they're called gremlin, like little like bunny rabbits with like teeth and whatnot. Some of them you can kill, but most of them you can't kill. But it's also just the fact that when we're moving through this game, about it like feeling lived in, I don't think respawning enemies would make it feel lived in. I actually think it would that would go against the point that you're saying here, where it's just like, hey, I just cleared this area and now everything's respawned. Everything is back. Okay, how? Why? I just went through this entire area and now it's like completely full again. And if you want to say, oh, well, like maybe like there's a straggler, like there's stragglers and like let repopulate the area and that makes it more lived in. It's just like, I'm not sure exactly if I buy that, but also I'm not sure if that's what the game is trying to sell. It is linear, as you've noted, but I don't think it is any less lived in because once you clear an area of enemies, no enemies respawn. It would, for me, the opposite would, if they did respawn, it would make it feel not lived in. It would break the fantasy a bit, you know.
Through an old abandoned tower. I'm starting to sense a theme here. Anyway, this tower is unapologetically creepy, and as someone with
I just want to point out, this is like, the entrance to this is a tower, but this isn't a tower. Like, your point earlier about like not going through dungeons, like this, the Western Cross was like a fortress, and if you read the lore books, you would know about this, but you didn't. It's actually a way for traders to pass through, to pass through like some of these Western lands, and like there were like rich people that lived down here that got rich from that trade, and then there was like essentially these spiders that you come across, these large spiders, the Arakun spiders, and the Makusa, which we'll see later on, which are like the spider human, like I guess like mix creatures. I don't know how to describe it. They're essentially spider human centaurs, but they are created from experiments after this place gets re-inhabited by like I believe it's the Sek, who are like the villains of this game, but they corrupt people and run experiments and do all this creepy nonsense. But all of this is in a lore book that you can actually get and read and learn about the game, the setting, and everything. But yeah, no, this isn't a tower. Like, this is all underground. There are 2 towers that lead into this place, which is underground. Calling it a tower is not accurate. Calling it a dungeon might be more accurate. You know, that just might be... you know, that might just be the case. This might just be a dungeon.
arachnophobia, yeah, it might have gotten to me. Slightly. Thankfully, it wasn't just spiders. We're talking skeletons, zombies, and, because why not, massive floating skulls that breathe fire. This was also the first time I realized just how important positioning was going to be. We are no longer fighting one or two Krug in a field. The encounters are bigger, messier, and far more dangerous.
I just have to say this. The beach outside of Stonebridge, where you come across the Krug encampment, that's a big fight for only 2 characters. You didn't really show it at the time, but that is a big fight for 2 characters. So I agree, like, in the grander point here is like this is like the first real challenge to like more than 2 people, positioning more than 2 people, but the scale of fights does get big earlier than this. I just want to point that out.
But this is where it really clicks. This is where Dungeon Siege becomes fun. Suddenly, that slow intro feels worth it. This is where the game demands more from you, and you finally have the tools to meet it. You've got your 3 core stats, but now
I'm looking at this. We called ourselves Aragorn, which oh my god. We called ourselves Aragorn, but we're just holding on to 2 potions and two mana potions here. I'm very intrigued by that. Because if you only have 4 people in your party when you first come across Stonebridge, you can get a good amount of potions in your inventory. You know, like, and you definitely want more than just 2 standard health potions, because yeah, you're gonna need them.
we layer on top the game's 4 distinct combat skills: melee, ranged, nature magic, and combat magic. Each skill levels up.
Alright, hang on, I'll just take a note of this real quick.
The more you use it. No rigid class system, and this is where Dungeon Siege stands out. Melee and ranged are straightforward. More use, better accuracy, and more damage. Nature magic, although it does have some damaging spells, it mostly focuses on healing and buffing your party. Combat magic, fireballs. You know the drill. In theory, the magic sounds cool, but in practice, it's underbaked. Over the entire game, I only use about 4 spells total. Compare that to the hundreds of weapons I use for my melee and ranged characters.
This point is gonna drive me up the wall. So we have 4 spells versus hundreds of weapons. So one of the design philosophies of this game, for sure, is like they don't want a rigid class system. They don't want to like lock you into a certain class system. They want it to be something that you can like easily work yourself into for different specialties, different skills. So like true, but 4 spells versus hundreds of weapons. I don't know exactly what you're talking about here. Even in the spells that you're mentioning earlier for combat and nature magic, both combat and nature magic also have summoning creatures that they can use. There's more like we could go delve a little bit deeper into the magic of both of them. So like nature magic does have buffing, does have healing, but also has stuff like utility. So like transmute, a spell that I notice that you do not have. You can make items that you find and turn them into gold. Very useful. A very, very useful spell, especially for inventory management and making sure that you're maximizing the amount of gold that you have. But there only being 4 spells that you use throughout the game is just nonsense. Magic in this game does have its issues. A lot of it has to do with the experience that you get from casting different things, and I think you start to hint towards it later on in this video. but there's actually quite a lot of spells that you can cast. You have Healing Hands here, but then there's also Major Heal, there's Healing Word, that's just 3, or Healing Wind. Those are 3 healing spells. You have Zap, you have Ice Shard, which is the spell that you have on you right now, but there's stuff like Lightning Bolt and Lightning Storm and Spark, Multi-Spark, Flash. There's a lot of spells that as a mage, those are all nature magic spells that I just mentioned, by the way. But it's just like there's multiple different spells that you can use and that you are likely going to use as you level up throughout the game, and that you should be using. What I do think might have happened here is because you focused on healing, you weren't able to level up with the game, like on pace with the game. And this is a problem that I've actually run into before myself, and a valid criticism of the game. The healing of this game does not reward XP on parity to dealing damage. That's due to the way that XP is calculated in this game. XP is by and large calculated by damage. And so if you're only casting healing spells, you do get a little bit of experience for casting the healing spell, but not as nearly as much as you would for casting a spell that dealt damage against an enemy. Because you are mainly rewarded experience for dealing damage. And then for utility spells, you are rewarded like a fraction of what you would normally get from a spell cast for casting a utility spell or a healing spell. That's one of the issues of this game, is you can't have a dedicated healer. So yeah, there's that. Also, hundreds of weapons. This is, for me, a bit silly, because if we're talking about melee weapons, it's like two-handed and then one-handed. And then debatably what attack speed you have. If it's a normal attack speed, fast attack speed, faster. But typically it is just the difference between a one-handed weapon and a two-handed weapon. Those weapons can look different, but functionality-wise, there's very little difference between them. Like, if I'm using a sword or an axe, that's not what matters when it comes to that. What matters is the attack speed and how much damage it does. Like, using a sword doesn't mean that I bleed people more frequently, or using an axe doesn't mean that I, bypass certain armor types or something like that. No, they're very much so stat sticks. The art is very cool. The art is very well done, and I'm not criticizing the system. Like, I'm not criticizing the weapon system. What I'm saying here is, the spells are actually drastically different when you cast them, and you do use more than 4 spells, and you're not actually really using hundreds of different weapons. You are using weapons that can be boiled down to attack speed, one hand versus two hand. That's it. Like, those are the differences. It's not hundreds of different weapons. Yeah, I just don't, yeah.
And it's clear that the casters got the short end of the wand, also being the squishiest of the group. But this limitation was by design. The game isn't about flashy spells or twitchy inputs. It's about strategy. Dungeon Siege expects you to think like a tactician, and that starts with formation combat. You set your tanks up front, ranged in the middle, and your fragile support casters at the back. Positioning isn't just important.
This is part of part of the frustration that I have is, like, we are already assuming, like, oh, support casters in the back. We're already, like, presupposing what the role of a caster is. It's just like, well, no, casters can deal damage. They can summon a monster to help you deal damage. They can be very good at support, and they oftentimes are, but we're sort of like forcing the wizard into a niche here, or like casters into niches here that they can be greater than very quickly, very easily. Oh, there's another spell, Dancing Zap, right there. Cool thing to note. See more than just 4 spells. Also, yes, casters not getting weapons and armor is the design, or being squishier is part of the design of the game. Um, I don't think a wizard that doesn't like work with strength a lot, and again, we didn't talk about how strength, dexterity, and intelligence are garnered in this game, how the experience works, unfortunately. But I don't think a wizard who's just casting spells primarily is going to be proficient or strong enough to wear, like, you know, heavy armor and whatnot. Like, it is a point of criticism with this game that there aren't more armor types, or like there aren't more ways like you can get armor, and it's something that they actually changed when they released Legends of Arana. They made it so that there are some armor sets that depend on dexterity, and they also increased the pool of armor types that relied on intelligence, because there are armor types, specifically robes, in this game that rely on intelligence. But yeah, no, a caster is not going to be as tanky or wear as durable armor as like a frontliner is. That just doesn't really add up with like what RPGs typically communicate in their games and like their experience systems. It doesn't really track.
Important. It's everything. Done right, it makes the game feel smooth, efficient, even elegant. Done wrong, your party gets absolutely annihilated. The level of party control is also surprisingly deep. You can micromanage everyone manually, let them follow a lead, spread them out, or arrange them in a formation so tight it'd make a SWAT team led by Samuel L. Jackson feel jealous.
Yes, I do. Hentai too.
You can even reposition mid-fight, moving your front line or pulling back support while keeping the pressure up. And this is why auto combat makes sense. You're not meant to tell everyone how to swing their sword. That's beneath your pay grade. Your job is to position, to respond, to adapt. Let the characters handle the hitting. You handle the thinking. We were nowhere near the end of the tower.
Just with that point, the formation fighting and everything, yes, that is the strong point of this game, and unfortunately something that I feel like games have moved away from. Like, you know, this really interesting niche of controlling an entire party and their formations is really cool. Something else that he doesn't mention, you can see it on the screen here, the move freely, attack freely, target closest. You can control individual behavior of players. So like you can control if they move freely, if they will stay locked onto an enemy and chase them away, or if they like stand their ground, they do not move from their spot that you last commanded to put them on. They'll attack enemies right next to them, but like they won't move from that. And then there's one that like has a little bit of give, where like they will move a certain duration to aggro onto something, but they won't chase after it, you know. There's also attack freely, you know, attack freely, not attack freely, and then don't attack at all. Then there's target the closest, target the strongest, and target the weakest enemy. So like you can control that, like who your specific character's aggro, how freely they're able to move around without your input, and how freely they are to attack without your input. You know, do they automatically aggro and all this sort of stuff. So even more than just the basic coverage that he gave, there's like even more depth to it there. But yeah, this is the strength of the game. He is correct in saying that.
And already I was struggling with inventory space, so I made the call to head back to Stonebridge and...
Alright, inventory space. At this point in the game, you don't... We'll get onto the donkeys because you bring them up later, the pack mules. But, yes, transmute spell. It's a level 1 nature magic spell. There are shopkeepers in this town, or there's a shopkeeper which sells a bunch of spells. More than likely, she has the transmute spell. More than likely, coming across the beginning of the game, fighting all the monsters, transmute has been dropped by an enemy or by a crate. Transmute is quintessential to inventory management. It's so many reviewers miss transmute as a spell, and it's very interesting because it is a very low level spell. It is like you should be able to find it easily in the beginning of the game, and everyone looks over it, and it's very crazy.
Off the growing mountain of loot. Productive? Yes. Tedious? Also, yes.
Hang on. I need to hear that again.
Yes. Tedious and sell off the growing mountain of loot. Productive? Yes. Tedious? Also, yes.
Yeah, that's what looters are. I mean, you go through the dungeon, you grab your items, and you sell them. Something that would make it this easier, and I'll go into it in more detail when you bring it up, but pack mules. Pack mules can make inventory management a lot easier. And something that you can utilize at this point in the game, but we'll get into that later.
During the climb back, we had a
I'll actually take a note of that.
close call. Yolora went down. But luckily, Zed revived her and we pressed on, finally making it to the boss of the tower. A tougher fight, but we pulled through, and at long last, we saw sunlight again. We cleared the blocked road to Stonebridge by destroying the boulder, and conveniently ran into a pair of traveling salesmen. Good timing too, we were already drowning in loot. Again. We resupplied, geared up, and got ready to head for Glitterdalv Mines. At the entrance, we meet this absolute badass, covered in gear, practically radiating.
This is actually something interesting. This is typically a cutscene. I've had this bug happen to me only once before, but typically, this is Gleorn, but he will kill all of these Krugs in a cutscene, and then it transitions back to your party. So the fact that he has this bug is actually kind of amusing.
Plot importance. He tells us that all of this, the Krug attacks, the undead, the destruction, may be tied to someone called Commander Gresh, but he suspects that the goblins are the real puppet masters. He believes his brother, who's trapped somewhere in the mines, might have answers, and he even offers to join the party, but this time I actually say no. It's time to start setting some standards. In my mind, more people in the party equals slower leveling for everyone. XP is not shared, it's finite, and so progress will eventually stall. And I'm not here to babysit freeloaders just because they have a tragic backstory. So,
It's this is experience is limited. Yes, because things do not spawn, experience is limited. And that doesn't change the fact that, like, you can easily play a party with up to 8 people and go through the game just fine. That's what this game is sort of designed to do. The group that I'm currently running through has 7 in a pack mule, and there is no problem with, like, your party not being strong enough to deal with the pressures that come ahead of you. And as this isn't a class system, as this isn't a system where it's like, oh, I need to get to this next level so I can use this next ability or unlock this new passive, there isn't really any major incentive to, like, trying to eke out as much as many levels as you possibly can on characters, other than, like, keeping up with parity to the enemies around you and, like, new weapons, armor, spells that you can use like that. Those are reasons for it, but having 7 people in a party isn't detrimental in regards to, like, what experience you can get and whatnot. But I mean, to be fair, you can. There are more than 8. Like, there are more than 8 potential companions in the game, so, like, you are gonna have to turn some people away. But turning people away based off of just, like, oh, I'm concerned about experience, and experience in this game is limited. It's like, yeah, you don't need to. Your party will stay up to date in parity. Like you will be able to fight the enemies around you. That won't be an issue.
Dungeon Siege's leveling system is genuinely unique. There are no skill trees, no points to assign, no ding, here's your new power moments. Instead, it's all about what you do. Use a sword, get better with swords. Use a bow, improve your aim. Use magic, well, you get the idea. And on paper, the system is good. It gives you the freedom to experiment. Want to turn your fighter into a battle mage who can heal mid-fight? Go for it. Just start using nature magic and the stats will follow.
Yeah, typically you would start this process and towards the beginning of the game. You wouldn't be using the basic nature magic spell Zap when your nature magic skill is 0 at this point in the game. Like this, the point that he's at, which is like the I think it's the Dark Forest, but it's right before Eastern Swamp. You're like 45% way through the game, like 45% way through the game. You're not exactly halfway, but you're basically halfway through the game. And to start at this point is a little bit late. If you start it in the early game, however, which is something I would recommend you do, regardless of your character, because you don't even have to cast Zap to level up your nature magic. You can heal yourself. You can heal allies. That's a good way to get a few points in nature magic, so that you can be like a supplemental healer to heal your parties, like to heal party members after combat. Or to transmute items, you can cast it yourself. You know, it's actually quite useful, but we'll get to his second point, which he should be raising.
But here's the catch. Mobs don't respawn, so XP is a finite resource. Once you've cleared an area, that's it. No going back to the grind. No switching builds halfway through. And that means experimenting often leads to a weaker character, punished for being creative. It's a huge missed opportunity. In an open world, this would be amazing. In Dungeon Siege, it's more of a trap.
Okay, yeah, I need to... We're getting into the open world part of this. Open world plus experience. And this is punished for creativity. So I know you mentioned multiplayer. I know he mentions multiplayer later in this video. But yeah, the linear campaign that has a clear start and a clear finish evidently does have limitations in regards to the experience that you can gain and the builds that you can make. The campaign is not where you get end game builds. That's where you get it, and you get those in the multiplayer, and the multiplayer is, as you will know, more of like an open world style game, and that is the time sink where you can play a character for hours and hours and hours and build up these more complex builds. Punished for creativity, well, I wouldn't call it punished for creativity if we're like, oh, I want to start leaning into nature magic when I'm halfway through the game. You know, if you want to try to make those builds, you would typically start earlier on. And to be fair, it is hard to get those more complex builds in the base campaign, or like in the base story, the single player mode, because it is a limited narrative. It typically gets you your character to around like uber level 40 or uber level like uber level 40 to like the uber level 50s is like typically where you end the game. So like there's a lot more that's going on with the game and a lot more that you can do beyond that in the multiplayer. You know, that's where that system really pops off. So if you want to criticize the campaign for not being able to explore everything, sure, maybe the campaign needed to be longer and whatnot to level up, to allow that sort of flexibility. But I don't really think that I don't really take issue with that, because you have the multiplayer. You do have the multiplayer there that you can play through, and that you can build out these character concepts and go through that world and like do all the quests and whatnot and clear all the dungeons and do that sort of thing. You know, I don't think this game was more than just its single player experience. So punished for creativity, I think, is a bit much.
Back in the mines, we're once again overflowing with loot, and at this point, I refuse to micromanage every pair of rusty boots in my inventory, but I also refuse to leave anything behind, which means back to town again.
I refuse this core mechanic of the game. I refuse to do inventory management. Like, is to micromanage. Like, this is, I don't know if that's not something that you enjoy. Hey, completely fair, but there are ways that you can manage the inventory very easily in this game, especially with the way that you organize. Something that I note is like you're not like organizing your inventory by potions, like, you know, or by like armor, so like you could physically move your armor and stuff down. A valid criticism of the game is, hey, could we have some sort of filter system that it organizes by item type? Granted, 20 years later, we see that with Baldur's Gate, but Baldur's Gate 3 specifically. But that's something that could be done here, hypothetically, is like, oh, we see armor, weapons, shields, spells, potions, miscellaneous. Why can't I organize this by that typing? Like, why can't I, like, click a scroll down wheel and do that? That's a valid criticism, but you're also just not engaging with the system to make organizing things easier for yourself. You're not engaging with transmute, which would make things easier for yourself. You don't have a mule yet, which would make things easier for yourself. So it's yeah, it's tough, man.
Now I noticed that the traveling merchants were selling pack mules, but I had a hunch they'd be cheaper in Stonebridge. So
this is the frustrating thing here, is we're mentioning the pack mules. I'll just put this note here. Yes, they were pack mules in Stonebridge, and you could have had one, you could have had two. I'm pretty sure you can buy 2 pack mules, maybe even 3 from Stonebridge. But that does depend on how much gold that you have at the time, albeit, but you could have had a pack mule by this time already. And you know that there's pack mules in Stonebridge. So it's inventory management is, if you lean into it, is actually not as hard and not as dreadful as you think.
Made my party stay put and went back alone. On the way, I ran into some guards who thanked me for opening the road to Glitterdelve. And this is what I mean by the game occasionally acknowledging your presence in the world. Unfortunately, this is the first and last time it really happens.
This is just not true. We are not talking to people in this game, if that is what you think. I think this game can do it a lot more, and is like actually a really strong way to subtly flesh out the world and to subtly make you feel more like a hero over time. Because that's sort of the point of this game, is you're going from a farmer to becoming the hero of a kingdom. And I feel like it focuses on that journey very well, and it's a very fulfilling feeling that you have by the end of the game, where it's like, holy shit, I just went through all of that, and like, we did it, you know? But no, there are more examples than just talking to the guards here, which you noticeably missed. You noticeably missed the first time that you actually destroyed the door, that you didn't like walk up to it, inspect it, click on it, or anything. But no, the previous example that I gave, if you talk to the lady in the windmill in Stonebridge, she asks you to go clear out the scrub, and then she will thank you for it after the fact. Ortis and Ortis's axe, if you go back and give him his axe back, or go back and like say that you found it or whatnot, he will have dialogue for you there. It is not done enough, but it is done multiple times through this game. There's someone in Glacier that does it. He will ask you to clear out his house, and you can go back and talk to him after you do that. There's actually something in Stonebridge, something that's really cool, is you can talk to someone in the inn who's saying, hey, I'm worried about my sister. She's a legionary and she's in Glaciern. Can you deliver this letter for her or to her? And then you go to Glaciern and then you find her sister and you get a ring for doing so, or you get an amulet. It is Lloyd's ring. So you get a ring for doing this. So there's more than just this that makes the world feel lived in. There's not like, I want there to be more, and there's a criticism to say that there's more, but to say that this is the one and only time, this would be Stonebridge / Glitter Delve 8. To say this is like the one and only time is just it's just not accurate. We're just not engaging. We're not engaging with the game, unfortunately. But what can you do?
But back in town, I finally did it. I bought not one, but 2 mules. Meet Flare and Silverhoof. Absolute OGs of this playthrough. Think Bill from Lord of the Rings and you get the idea.
Bye-bye, Bill.
With them, I never had to backtrack for loot again. Ever.
I think maybe the Lord of the Rings impression and whatnot, because I think this game came out before the movies. Let me verify this. I could be wrong. But we are reading into the game a lot of we were reading a lot of Tolkien, Lord of the Rings into this game. So yes, yeah, the movies were out at this time. So at the time of release, because Dungeon Siege was in 2002, and the first 2 movies were, I think, released by the time that this was released. Granted, this game was in development long before the movies had come out, because this game had like a 4-year development cycle or something like it was in development since like 1997, I think, or 1998. But this game, this isn't like Oblivion, which was released years after the Lord of the Rings games, and where you could make strong arguments, such as the arguments that Patrician TV makes in his Oblivion video, that Lord of the Rings did impact the vision of that game, and like, with its popularity and everything. This game was already being made before the release of those movies. So it's just very interesting to see how much Lord of the Rings is like being read into this.
You're introduced to Dungeon Siege's loot system almost immediately, and it's glorious. There's a handy little button that lets your characters automatically pick up everything around them. No clicking, no dragging, just vacuum mode engaged. It's a true loot goblin's wet dream. But here's the problem. You'll run out of space very quickly. Sure, adding more characters helps, but it's never enough. That's where the game introduces something different. Pack mules. These beautiful, cowardly beasts will run from danger at the first sign of trouble. But in return, they can carry 3 times more than any party member. And when you finally reach a vendor, unpacking everything feels like a payday, cashing in on every sword, bow, and rusty helmet you found along the way.
This is just something interesting for me. It's like, we are probably prioritizing potions in our pack mules inventory over actual weapons or stuff that we can sell. And so it's just like, is it worth holding on to 3 potions versus a magical sword or this weapon or this or that or this or that? Like, again, inventory management. If you lean into it a little bit, you'll find that it's not as annoying or as difficult as it sounds. That, and if we drink our potions, which I know you haven't talked about yet, but when we get there, we'll talk about it. If you drink your potions, you would have a lot less of an issue with inventory management.
And Silverhoof, now part of the team, we push deeper into the mines. There's more combat, more close calls, a bit of platforming, and eventually we find the dwarf's brother.
Bravely done!
He confirms our suspicions. The Krug are being driven by someone or something. He agrees that the overseer in Gleisern must be warned, and with that, we ride the elevator out of the mines. What greets us next is a snow-covered expanse, a massive shift from the darkness below. It's a welcome sight. Of course, not everything goes smoothly. We push through an ice cave, and while I genuinely like the aesthetic here, it's noticeably more difficult. We get ambushed from behind, and Zed goes down.
Yes, these are claws. These are enemies that show up throughout the game. And they are utilized excellently because they will let you walk past them on this linear trail that you're going through and then attack your backline. So you have to be very careful with how you position and where you're walking and whatnot and how you respond to that. So yeah, the Glacier sequence is a very enjoyable one, but I'm also partial towards like frozen and snowy environments. So
Our only necromancer. Luckily, there's a once-off resurrection spell that any character can use, so we were able to revive him and press on. We don't learn our lesson here, and that will come back to haunt me. Eventually, we reach the town of Gleisern, and I can finally breathe a sigh of relief. After restocking and delivering our report to the Overseer, we get our next lead. Apparently, a powerful mage vanished recently, and that's when all of this chaos began. So, we keep an eye out. We clear the roads outside of town and stumble into an ice cave filled with ice insects, ice warriors.
So I almost just like have to mention at this point, there hasn't been any mention of any of the side quests that goes on, and I really wonder if it's like a purposeful lack of mentioning of them, or if we just aren't talking, if we're not talking to people. I can't see his journal, I can't see what's in his quest, but yeah, no, it's just like we're not talking about the fact that we wanted to deliver, or that we were asked to deliver a letter if we talk to people, or the fact that in the town you can retrieve 3 books, each of them giving lore about the route that you're traveling right now. It's called like Feldever's Way or something like that. This is the route, the trading route that you are taking or trying to get to take to make your way to the kingdom. And it gives you a lot of lore about the area and about the things that are going on right now. Or talking to individuals about like, hey, what's going on in the broader context of this world? What's going on? Talking to people, talking to characters, believe it or not, actually gives you a lot of insight as to the events of this game. And it's just I've watched this. This is like my 3rd time watching this at this point, and I just like realized like we were just not. Is this an intentional thing to not cover any side quests? Intriguing.
And ice everything. I'm sensing a theme. Despite the world being seamless, Dungeon Siege is still painfully linear, and that's frustrating, because the tech was there. The engine could have supported an open world experience.
Yeah.
In fact, it did, in multiplayer. And multiplayer felt so much more alive. In the campaign, you follow a scripted path. In multiplayer, you forge your own. There wasn't much of a story in multiplayer, but let's be honest, no one is here for the story. Multiplayer was bigger, richer, and it just felt like a living world. So why they didn't...
I noticed that you're using Ross's footage here for this, and it makes me wonder if you actually engaged with the multiplayer system at all, or if it's something where it's just like, oh crap, they do have a multiplayer to this game, and I gotta mention this, and I don't have the footage myself, but here we go. But yeah, a game's campaign being linear or open world, this to me just reminds me of as Patrician TV would call it, the universal design philosophy, where there's like a singular best way to design games. And I don't think this is completely the motivation for this open world discussion, but it's very similar in origin. And it just to me just is like, oh, okay. I feel like this is calling for the Skyrimification of Dungeon Siege, like it has to become open world, like Elden Ring, because Elden Ring's such a good open world game. It's no, the game doesn't need to be an open world game. The main story, the single player mode of the game, can be linear to follow, to follow the story and to show the gameplay that it has. Multiplayer also being more open world reflects the fact that there isn't a main story that's tying you down, like you just said. It is something that you'd be playing with multiple different people. So where you guys go and what you guys choose to do is ultimately up to the group that you go around and explore. Granted, you couldn't just go to end game areas, but you could go and choose choose from different areas that you go and explore to finish different quests and whatnot. But it's I don't understand this fixation on open world games, and RPG games have to be open world and whatnot. It's just very there's another reviewer that does talk about open world design, and it's just very confusing.
Make the campaign open world too, I have no idea. And honestly, it bugs me way more than it should. Just a quick note, I'm not saying that the overall experience was better in multiplayer. They took out exactly what made Dungeon Siege unique, the party system. So you went through it as a single character, essentially breaking the combat down to that slow early game experience.
Alright, the reason why they quote unquote took out the party system out, which it's because you are playing with multiple people online. You're not playing with you're not playing with just yourself in a narrative focused experience, or I guess a campaign focused experience. Let's be real. You're playing this focused on you're playing multiplayer with other people, your friends that you communicated with. If you look through the Dungeon Siege forums and you look at the old I think it's Dungeon Siege Heaven, different websites, it's just you went and you played this game with your friends and you organized play times and you didn't play it by yourself. There are mods and edits today that exist that will allow you to to import a party and to play it single player, but import a party so you're playing the multiplayer as though you are a single player, which is cool. But at the time that this game was released, it's not getting rid of the party system. It's fundamentally changing it because you're playing with other real people. So, yeah.
And although I understand why they did it, it kind of misses the point. I just want the campaign to also be an open world with the
But why? But why? This game, you say this game is painfully linear. Why is it painful? Why does it need to be an open world game? It's throughout this game, it's a curated experience. What we're going through, different areas, different dungeons, different ruins, different places to make it to Castle Ebb to save the kingdom and whatnot. What exactly about this experience is painful? Is it the fact that you have to run back to town? Because I wouldn't call that a linear thing. I would say that's an inventory management system or issue on your part. There, you can manage your inventory significantly better so that you don't have to run back multiple times to the previous area. in regards to like playing through this and moving forward, you're experiencing different biomes. Like you're going through and fighting different mobs of enemies. The experience and what the game is giving you here isn't tailored to an open world experience. This isn't like I am John character. I'm John Skyrim. I'm John Dragonborn, and I get to make my own life and choose my own thing. No, this is definitely a campaign focused, hey, you're John Farmer Man, go to the king. And this is the path that you have to take to go to the king. That's what this is. That's all that this is selling to you, and like playing with the game mechanics. That is what this system is selling to you, and what the designers are selling to you. It doesn't need to be open world just because you like open world. Like I don't. Skyrim has dealt damage to RPGs that, or to people that play RPGs that I think it will take a while before we can recover from it.
Spawning mobs, so you can actually experiment with this unique leveling system. I've tried getting the multiplayer to work again. It would be amazing to revisit those maps, but I haven't had any luck. If you know how to get this running, please let me know in the comments. Seriously,
if it ever does come up, I wouldn't mind sending you stuff or sending him stuff if this somehow ever gets down the grapevine. But if you look at the Steam community, there's a whole lot of fixes there. Online forums will have it as well if you like literally just look up Dungeon Siege multiplayer, because there are issues with like Legend of Arana, the main expansion. There are more expansions than just Legends of Arana, but Legends of Arana is like the biggest expansion to Dungeon Siege, or the biggest official expansion. And I know for a fact in the Steam community you can find someone who's made a fix for the Steam version there so that you can get it. Also just owning the copies of the game, which albeit is getting harder nowadays, but like owning the copies and downloading it, like they would still work. But yeah, I would definitely point you towards looking at the Steam community pages, and then looking at online forums, Dungeon Siege Heaven, and I don't think it's Game Banshee, but there is another one where there are forums discussing this and how to do this. The information is out there.
Flare and Silverhoof. We reach this mysterious area with a glowing crystal at the center. Wait, is someone trapped inside? Meet Merrick, the most powerful wizard in the land, and he tells us that some dark force is behind the Krug attacks, and it's after his staff, which was recently stolen. He then offers to join us, and after checking his stats, let's just say Zed got outclassed hard. So yeah, Merrick joins the party. Not long after, we run into possibly my favorite NPC of the entire game.
Who are you, then? You tell that little green snotball I don't have any high and mighty magic staff?
This is Jiraiya, a boomer trader with a grudge. We sell our stash.
There are quite a few characters in this game. Granted, they typically only have like 2 blocks of dialogue for the most part, which, again, I think it's a valid point of criticism, but Jiraiya being a favored one seems to be a commonality amongst some of these reviewers. I guess just a sassy guy in the forest is, or a bit of an asshole in the forest is enough to earn that claim. But yeah, because I do think that the characterization of the NPCs is something that you can criticize, because like I think this game can give you a little bit more in terms of side quests or dialogue and whatnot. Just ways to flesh out the world. This game definitely could have done it. But yeah, not surprised that Jiraiya is your favorite.
Grade our gear and prepare to move out again. But I was still pretty firm on keeping my party size at 5, so we said our goodbyes to Zed. Thanks for your service, bud. Enjoy retirement with Jiraiya. In hindsight, Zed's slow progression probably came from only casting healing spells. Dungeon Siege levels your skill based on use, so to keep my mages effective,
we're at 22. Cost 22, 25. This is magic leveling / experience.
I'd need to mix in damage spells, even from my dedicated healers. Lessons learned. We venture into another cave.
Lessons learned, but evidently not, because we're still hovering magic armor and healing hands on our only spellcaster. But yes, the way that this game's experience works is by dealing damage. You get experience points based off of the amount of damage that you deal an enemy. That is how this game works. So when you are a spellcaster and you cast a utility spell, you do get some experience as a reward for casting that spell, but it's nowhere near enough to match dealing damage. And yeah, you can't just use heal spells. That is a mistake that I've done too. But yeah, that is something that you can definitely criticize the magic system for.
Filled with all kinds of new enemy types, including these crystal-ranged mobs who absolutely kite you like pros. Every time you get close, they bolt. Your party, especially your melee characters, will chase them down no matter what, breaking formation. And that's when it happened, my first full wipe. And it happened fast. An archer goes down, then my main character drops. Merrick tries to revive me and falls. My last tank gets swarmed and I hit the retreat with Yalora as my only survivor. But then, my main character stood up. I panicked and tried to run him out. Too late. Everyone was dead. And as much
To me, this sequence here perfectly captures this game and where its difficulty comes from, because if you've noticed, his archer up top died, and that's because the Trog, that's the enemy to the left of this donkey here, that's holding onto a two-handed sword. I think that's a Trog knight, actually came up and aggroed her and killed her while he was focusing on his own player down there. And what's hilarious is if we used healing potions, he absolutely could have got out of this situation with relative ease. I know I'm sort of cheating, but we're gonna get to a point where he reveals the fact that he doesn't use healing potions. And not using healing potions has caused a lot of his discomfort throughout this whole game. Because you don't need you aren't hard pressed to have your mages only be healers. You can benefit from your mage casting healing spells for sure, but healing potions does a lot in the ways of keeping your party alive. Also, when you're drinking your healing potions, they're no longer taking up space in your inventory. So if you're just compulsively picking them up and then not using them, you're going to have a lot less inventory issues if you're actually drinking your potions. But we'll continue.
much as I love Flare and Silverhoof, I'm pretty sure they don't know necromancy. So I had to reload and go back in with a much stronger formation. And this time, it actually worked. Which shows you just how critical positioning in this game can be. So let's talk about the AI for a second. I'll be honest, it's bad. Sometimes I'd be focused on swapping spells, monitoring health bars, doing everything you're supposed to be doing, only to look up and realize. Monitoring health bars, doing everything you're supposed to be doing, only to look up and
Alright, so this is a lack of understanding of the game, as we can see here. So this is engage slash what would I call it? I forgot the specific name of the system down here in the bottom right, but or the term that you could use to refer to this. But so something that we can see here is he has his people, his party is all set on engage right now. What that means is they engage enemies only within like a certain radius of like their individual weapon range. You know, so archers could walk up a little bit to hit people that are just out of the range, but they're not going to walk up very far to aggro into something. Like, you know, like they might take a few steps forward. Melee characters might take a few steps forward to engage an enemy or to aggro backwards to, like, in the case of this definitely looks like Gjorn here, who is probably hitting someone up in the front and then aggroed back down to the skeleton down low. And but he's not gonna all of a sudden run forward and chase these guys unless you have them on the free move. But they're not on the free move. And that isn't to say that the AI of this game is perfect. It is not. There are some big problems here. But free move is a setting that you can have and you can turn on. And if you want your characters to freely move, that is something you can have them do. But you have them set to engage, which means that they will, for the most part, stand their ground, but they will move in a short radius around them. Disposition, I guess, would be the word that I'm like, you can control the disposition and like how your characters engage and whatnot. I guess that's what we can call that system. I forgot, like, I don't think that there's like an official name for it, but you have formations and then you have like character disposition. So
monitoring health bars, doing everything you're supposed to be doing, only to look up and realize my melee fighters were just standing there doing nothing.
yeah, this means that you have to click on the enemies and aggro them. Like if we go back to this instance here,
Just chilling. Then the
hang on, I'm sorry. If we go back to this instance here, we can see he is focused currently on manually healing Gjorn. He is hovering over the icon, probably either right-clicking or pressing C, but we're not we didn't re-aggro, we didn't re-engage our frontliners. We did not click them to aggro them. So, based off of their disposition, which is set to engage only, and based off of your actions right now, you are not doing what you were describing. You're not doing everything as you normally should. If you want them to move forward and aggro, you need to click on them in this case.
thing you're supposed to be doing, only to look up and realize my melee fighters were just standing there, doing nothing, just chilling. Then there's your ranged characters. If one bush or tree is in the way, they'll simply give up on life. Brilliant. Now, look, maybe that's...
Hang on,
in the way, they'll simply...
crossbows are difficult here.
Life.
I'm 90% certain, I'm like 99% certain here, that she is actually firing her crossbow and hitting the goblin, I think, goblin lightninger. Like they have a specific name, but this gobbo bot right here that's shooting lightning at her, I'm pretty sure she's shooting at him. And the reason is if she was hitting this barrel in front of her, it would have exploded and she would have taken damage and more than likely went down if her arrows were actually going into either of these two barrels. These are explosive barrels. This isn't some, like, you can accidentally shoot a barrel with projectiles in this game. Like, you can miss an enemy and you can see these boxes up here. If you miss an enemy and hit this box up here instead, the box will break, even if you didn't target it. It's the same with barrels and whatnot. Like, you can... I don't think that this is an example of them just shooting the barrel and not doing anything. Crossbows are a little bit difficult because the bolts are a little bit harder to see, very much so harder to see than in comparison to arrows, because arrows, like, they travel slower, like you see the arch and whatnot, and the sound is a little bit more pronounced than the crossbow. But this person definitely, it seems to be, is shooting actually and firing.
Brilliant. Now,
So I don't think this is an example. Sorry, I don't think this is an example of what this guy's saying. There are instances where this is the case. It doesn't happen nearly as much to be frustrated by it as, well, that's, I guess, up to interpretation. But it is not something that I've run into constantly, where I'm constantly repositioning my archers because they're constantly shooting into things. They're constantly, being positioned improperly. But here's the thing also, skill issue. You can control the positioning of your characters. The AI is to be criticized, but you are also to be criticized because you can manually control where your people are standing at all times. You can press spacebar, you can pause the game, you can move them, and you can have them re-aggro. That's the issue here.
bush or tree is in the way, they'll simply give up on life. Brilliant. Now, look, maybe that's on me, maybe I should have micromanaged them better, but still, it shouldn't be this frustrating, and it happens way too often. We exit the cave and we enter what looks like a dark forest, crawling with new mobs and side paths to explore. Eventually, we stumble across a camp of travelers. We chat with some of them, and honestly, some of this dialogue just gold.
They come and they take my secret.
I just know the writer said this out loud a few times, thinking, yeah, that sounds right.
The men of our camp concern themselves with the bravado of the harmless bandits.
After some sales, we gear up again, making sure every party member gets their upgrades. This
Another reason why we can tell by, he's going to say it, I promise. I'm not edging anyone here. He's going to say it, but it's just another proof that he isn't using his potions is because his horses are, or his pack mules are filled with potions. And it's just like, I promise you, if you're using your potions, especially through the Crystal Caverns, which you just came out of, because you have Dark Lungers, you have the Throwers that are there as well, you have the Trog Knights and the Trog, and the crystals themselves, they will deal plenty of damage. Like, you can definitely use the healing. I am very intrigued to see how all of the fights are going at this point, because it is just like how underutilized potions are in this playthrough is just, it's just astonishing to me.
and making sure every party member gets their upgrades. This right here is another reason why I've been so strict about keeping the party to 5. By the time the loot is sold and supplies are restocked, the gold is usually gone, and often someone still ends up under-geared.
I think, here, so like, this is, sorry, 2514, not 3514. I think an issue that, where this comes from actually has to do with, specifically with the setting that he's on. Expended after dropping. Yeah, sure, that works. The settings, and this isn't explicitly said, but the settings actually impact how much gold you get during trades with traders that you have, and that has to do with your difficulty. So there's like easy, normal, hard, and on hard difficulty, that's where you get, I think, like 2/3 of the item's true value or something like that. Whereas when easy and normal, you get like significantly less. So like that could also be a case as to why he's having gold issues, but he wouldn't be nearly having as much gold issues if he was properly managing his inventory. But you know, because you'd have more things to sell, you'd have transmute turning items into gold and whatnot. You wouldn't be struggling so much.
5 feels like the magic number.
Go, let the Dark Sister guard you well.
And just when I thought things were balanced, we meet a new archer. Slightly better stats than Eulora, so you know what that means. Eulora gets benched. We take her gear, hand it over to the new recruit, and leave her there.
You're as inconstant as the wind. Very well, go on then. I'll do well enough on my own.
This whole party shuffle made me realize something about the leveling system. It's clever, leveling based on what you use. But it has a downside. If you don't spec the characters yourself, you stop seeing them as people, and you start seeing them as stat packages. I care about you as much as I care about these boots. If someone gives me +1 on a stat, you're getting traded and left behind. There's no emotional investment, just optimization.
I agree with this criticism, but not from the origin that he says. This isn't a problem of the class system. This is a problem of, like, the narrative and, like, lack of character development within characters. This is definitely something that I think Dungeon Siege could have done a lot more, especially since there are characters that have, like, clear motivations. So I think Faendril, I believe is the name of the archer that he just picked up. She's pissed because the bandits stole all of the money that she was gathering for an archery tournament that she was going to host. And so her motivation is to get all of her money back and to, like, kill the bandits that stole all of it. So there's no dialogue, no development after you kill all of the bandits. You can see one of them at the top of the screen here, but there's no sort of development there for that. In regards to the dwarf that we met earlier, Gleon, when you free his brother, there's no dialogue between the two of them. You know, there's no sort of anything between the two of them. Those sorts of things is where you are lacking that sort of, like, emotional connection to these people beyond just, like, them, you know, being like an archer or them being like a mage. That's not a fault of the leveling system. That's a fault of the game's, like, story and inclusion of people in its story, and that is a valid criticism to have. Not caring for party members, you know. So I completely understand that lack of caring, that lack of investment. I will actually write that down. I completely understand that, but it's not the leveling system's fault.
We reach the swamps and the memories come rushing back. This is one of the most vivid areas I remember from when I played this game as a kid. It's eerie, wet, and filled with annoying summoners. These guys keep running away when you get too close, but you can't chase them down too recklessly or you'll draw too much aggro. Meanwhile, they just keep summoning more enemies, forcing you to either commit or retreat. It's a great mechanic, but also kind of a pain. And then the swamp dragons show up. They do
I don't know, like, this is a little pet peeve of mine, but that's a Hydrak, and then the things that you were talking about before, those summoners, those are just, I'm pretty sure those are just called swamp witches, but you can see what their names are when you hover over them, you know. So yeah, that's a swamp witch. Like, we could refer to them by name. We have them. We can see it.
AoE damage and a lot of it. My mage got instantly deleted.
So this has to do with positioning. Who is he aggroing here, and where is his AoE projectile shooting? Oh, it's shooting at the rest of your party and knocking people down. If he is aggroing this guy right here on the left, then you can move him to have his breath go somewhere else. You know, it's...
And the new archer, gone. And of course, no resurrection scrolls, so we backtrack again to grab one. Surely this time I will learn my lesson. We revive everyone, move the mage to the back where he belongs, and carry on. Eventually, we purify the swamp by placing a mysterious artifact on an altar inside an abandoned church. Sure.
So this is the first side quest that we've, like, mentioned here. Well, no, that's... Actually, I have to rescind something. He mentioned one other side quest, which was opening the pass between Glitterdelve and Stonebridge. That is technically, like, that is a side quest, I suppose. But that is a side quest that you get from talking to the person that delivers the main quest to you. So it's not exactly, or that continues the main quest. So it's not exactly the same thing as like walking up to a different NPC, talking to them and getting their side quest. We haven't talked about any of those specific side quests yet. This side quest here is a side quest that you get from a dying man who is dying right before the entrance to the swamp area. You would have to purposefully just walk past the dying man to not into the swamp to not get this side quest. He is the only NPC that you can talk to in the area that he is found in. So in the swamp, there are 2 NPCs you can talk to. And in the Black Forest, there are, besides for the Traveler Camp, there are no NPCs you can talk to there. It's just all bandits that you kill. Bandits, wolves, and claws, and all that sort of stuff. But the point that I'm trying to get here is we still haven't talked about a side quest that you have to like sort of go out of your way to talk to someone to get. There's not a lot of them in this game, but they definitely are there, and they aren't hard to find. We have only talked about the 2 side quests that you get for literally following in a straight line and not deviating at all. So, yeah.
And we meet an apprentice mage who somehow...
I also just hate the fact that that's one of my favorite sequences in the game, is purifying the Azunai temple there. And it has a unique encounter where when you place that, or how it's supposed to execute is when you place the crystal to purify the temple, a whole bunch of zombie spawns. It's one of the best encounters in this game. Very fun, very challenging. But I don't know, it wasn't worth talking about, I guess.
Has better stats than Merrick, the most powerful wizard in the realm. Yeah.
What? You've got the gall to dismiss the Grand Mage of the 10th Legion? I certainly hope you've no ambitions greater than being a mule dung seller, child. Off with you!
Wow. Glad he took it well. We run into this strange woman in the woods. She's definitely not a bog witch.
Ooh, look on my porch at the handsome dandies.
Definitely. But we need to resupply, so I'm not asking too many questions. Up to now, I've been pretty harsh on the world building in Dungeon Siege, mostly because it feels more like a backdrop than an actual place that you inhabit. But there is something I have to give credit for. Reaching towns in Dungeon Siege feels meaningful. You've spent hours...
Yes, the settlements of this game are definitely one of the strong points. And funnily enough, it was open world, they would not feel as important. But I'll let you clarify your point before I continue.
Was crawling through dark mines, infested caves, and monster-filled forests. You're low on potions, overloaded with loot, and tense from constant combat. And then, finally, you see those gates. People are waiting behind it. Vendors are standing by. Relief. There is no teleporting back to safety in Dungeon Siege. You had to fight your way here, step by step, and it makes it matter. You finally get to unload, buy new gear, maybe swap party members, and just breathe. It genuinely feels like sitting next to a fire after pitching a tent. Everything's unpacked. And you don't feel stingy with gold, because you have no idea when you'll feel this safe again. It's a rare and welcome oasis, and it's something I truly appreciate.
And hey, that feeling that you get is because it's not open world. If it was open world, it'd be a lot harder to capture that feeling of actually going somewhere or going through an area, being forced to not fast travel back, or being unable to go to a different area that you cleared and whatnot. It is just, okay, we have to move forward, we have to push through, we have to persevere. And then when you get to that town, that settlement, or that witch in the swamp, it's just like, oh my god, thank god I have somewhere I can resupply. Thank god I have that. That relief, a lot of that relief and a lot of that feeling goes completely away if we switch to an open world design. It's a lot harder to capture that design ethos there. You could, like, hypothetically, like, I'm not saying it can't be done, but the linear design of Dungeon Siege encapsulates it a lot easier, and that's the strength of the linear design of the single player mode. That is something that you don't get as much in the multiplayer mode. They do implement like teleporter things, like teleporter platforms, but they're not scattered. Like, you do have to like physically go to them and access them and unlock them and that sort of stuff. But you aren't like locked into, all right, move forward or die. Like, you don't have that sort of tension. So yeah, you just, everything that you just said falls into support of why the game being so linear is it's intended, and it evokes these sorts of emotions.
Next, we find a massive hollowed tree stump, which turns out to be the entrance to the Goblin territories, home to the most advanced civilization in the land. And they're not messing around. Inside are freaking tanks, autonomous robots, and for the heck of it, flying drones made from skulls that shoot lightning. Yup. This is also where the difficulty ramps up. Hard, proper positioning, target prioritization, and knowing when to fall back all become essential. Well, that's true unless you're me and refuse to use one of the game's core mechanics.
Yes, my favorite part of the video. I totally did not rip out my hair when I was first watching this out of frustration.
Potions. Don't worry.
Sorry, let me have him completely say what he was saying about potions.
Use one of the game's core mechanics. Potions. Don't worry, I will figure it out eventually.
It is not hard to figure out how to use potions in this game. If you look at the bottom right, it's hard to see because of the play button, but there's a literal physical icon, red icon, that you can click on that will make all of your party members drink. You can right-click a potion in your inventory to drink. You can press H on your keyboard to make you and all of your party members that you have selected drink a healing potion, if they are below a certain threshold. Using healing potions is not hard to figure out. There are like tips, like a tool tip at the start of the game when you start that like pops up and that tells you how to play the game. This information is not hard to find, this information is not hard to grasp, and it's not hard to execute. I'm so baffled. I'm just baffled that we're not using healing potions at all through this playthrough. Like, it's just, it is very, very crazy. It makes me, like, I wonder if what game mode, if this is easy or normal mode. I don't think it's hard difficulty. I don't think you could do this on hard, and I don't think you would have as much of an issue with gold if you were playing on hard, even with your poor inventory management. I think you'd be dying a lot more if you were on hard. So this makes me think that this is easy or normal, and the fact that you haven't been motivated to heal before now makes me think that this is on easy mode. That's pure speculation, but yeah, using potions, not difficult.
I push through the Goblin factory, dodging death. Sometimes just barely, other times not so much. It's a long slog, but eventually we reach the end of the factory, where a mad goblin scientist waits next to Merrick's stolen staff.
Wretched Krug! Wretched invaders! Everything wrecked! Warding staff ours! Goblins! You all pay!
But he's not going without revealing his last trick, and what a trick it is. That's a lot of AoE damage. Okay, the heals are just gone. Okay, that went well.
Yes, I think I did notice a scene there where we actually did start drinking potions, which, thank goodness.
That's Lot of
But
melee damage.
yeah, positioning in this fight is very important.
Okay, the heals are just...
And the fact that the goblin boss is like one of the only creatures to frequently reposition does make him a lot harder. But you are not doing all that needs to be done to like win this fight. If you think this is what Dungeon Siege managing of a party looks like, and it's very interesting to see that this is like, we're not like selecting our bottom 3 casters, like we're not selecting the ranger and the caster and repositioning them manually. We're not selecting our 2 fighters and repositioning them manually. Like we are just controlling the whole group and clicking on this guy and hoping that we can kill him. That is definitely, there's definitely so much more to this combat than there's so much more to this combat than just standing still and left clicking. And even when I'm actually, hang on, I need to check something. I see move freely here. I see me move freely here. Some people are move freely, some people are not. Some people are engage, and then this is engage and whatnot. Some people are like this. Okay. First, I was concerned for a second. He has engage turned on here. Okay. For a second, I thought there might have been a possibility for some disingenuous gameplay earlier when he had his fighters he had his party toggled to engage only, or like he had like engage, attack freely at target closest. And he was like, "Oh, well, my fighters are just standing there." I thought he had just turned on engage only for that sequence, but no, he has multiple instances through this video where their settings are mixed up. So thankfully he is accurately representing his gameplay and whatnot. Not to just get like points on the game. So yep, that's good.
Okay, the heals are just gone. Okay, that went well. The only way I can beat this boss, cheesing hard. You find grenade launchers, which do barely any damage, but I discovered...
Hang on, we're gonna let him explain how cheesing is the only way to beat this boss. But I should say that because he's not making a claim that's the only way to beat it.
I could shoot them at the floor, and they'd bounce just right in order to hit the boss standing helplessly in the other room. Yeah, not my proudest fight, but hey, it worked.
I will say, like, hey, there was a problem. You found a solution to it. I respect that. Good on you. However, you do not only need to cheese this boss to beat it. They're like, again, if we're actively positioning our characters, if we are controlling where he's shooting his AoE, because he's going to be aggroing your melee characters first. So if you position your melee characters on the opposite side of him, and then have your archers and your casters on the other side of him, he's not going to be hitting them with your AoE. Does that require using your spacebar? Yes. Does that require selecting 2 of your characters, repositioning them, and then selecting the 3 others and repositioning them at times? Yes, but that's playing the game. That's Dungeon Siege. That's party management. That's, like, breaking formation. Because keeping a formation is important, but sometimes you have to break it and control it, So you can beat this boss without cheesing it. I promise you. That is something that you can do. But you found a way to overcome it, and I'm not gonna criticize you for that. Good job.
Just gonna try and do the cleanup kinda admirably. After the fight, we reclaim the staff, which instantly deactivates all the automatons. Our next stop is Fortress Croth, which is
funny because that's like a story implication there, like, oh, we took the staff and all of the all of the Gobobots shut down. I wonder why. And it's just like, oh, well, I mean, if we're paying attention, that the goblins were using the staff to power everything, and, you know, and that's part of the story of why goblins want the staff, and we're looking for the staff. Jeremiah's post, you know, Jeremiah says that. It's, you know, the game doesn't have incredibly depth story and world building, but it's most definitely there if we just pay attention.
Under siege by none other than Commander Gresh. Remember him? The dwarf back at Glitterdelf Mines warned us about this guy.
These magic bits the Krug are stealing are going to some clag named Commander Grish.
But before we reach the fortress, we run into another trader. Perfect timing to resupply and rearm.
Wait, isn't that the Beholder from Dungeons and Dragons? Oh, Dungeons.
Oh, okay. Yeah, at this point in the cave that he's running through, these are the temple ruins. He has already come across 2 of these creature types. So this is, they're called Furies, or it's called a Fury in this game. But as you can see, yeah, it looks a lot like a Beholder, but I just also find it funny that this guy was just like, hang on, the 2 Furies that we fought previously in this temple, they're actually small. They're not like this big one. So when I make the joke about Beholders and Dungeon Siege and Dungeons and Dragons, I want to go to the big one. And it's just like, oh, well, I mean, this isn't a surprise to you. You fought 2 of these guys already. Like, it's, come on, guy.
Siege. I get it. Microsoft didn't have enough money for the IP, huh? Well, close enough.
As we approach the outskirts of the forest, we find the surrounding area swarming with the undead. And if you were actually paying attention to the story, don't worry, no one was, you'd remember this. At the start of the game, we learned that the Krug mastered necromancy.
I don't know why that's like... That says more about you and the people that you're talking about than it does about the game if you were or weren't paying attention to it. This isn't like a gotcha. Like, you can pay attention to the story and get as much out of it as you can, and then criticize that instead of just saying, oh, hey, if you're actually paying attention to the story, but hey, no one was doing that. It's just like, no, you're like, if we're playing the game, if we're reviewing the game, we need to be paying attention to it as much as possible.
How can they have now mastered necromancy?
Why? Well, because Commander Gresh taught them.
At last.
It's time we return the favor.
Let us see if your metal is greater than that of your...
It's funny, because you also refer to paying attention to the story, but there's a lot more to Commander Gresh and a lot more to the Krug that are going on right now, because yes, he is the one that taught the Krug necromancy. He's the one that also mobilized the Krug to look for magic items. That's something that when you talk to random people and you talk to people in the main quest, you learn, oh, hey, these guys want magic items. And then there's also this Merrick staff, and everyone's looking for it. It's a very powerful staff. You know, the goblins have it, and they use it to power all their robots and in their factories. And all of these Krugs are looking for magic items. Oh, they're looking for Merrick's staff. Huh. I wonder why. That's very interesting. Why would they be looking for Merrick's staff? You know, like, you say, like, don't worry, no one was, if you're actually paying attention to the story. We're not even, like, fully talking about, Krug Commander Gresh and, Kresh and the full implications of what he's doing and how that has led to the events that have previously happened in the game happening. Like, we're not even... I'm tired.
Oh no. Oh, this fight. This one frustrated me. Not because it's hard, that's fine. It's
I just we reloaded the save instantly. We're barely clicking. We're barely managing. What we literally just did was just click heal on our healer. That is what we did for this fight, by the way. Which this is a hard fight. This is like this guy has been hyped up since Stonebridge. He's been explicitly hyped up since Stonebridge, but we've heard about his machinations since Allura in the Crypt. You know, like with the Krug learning necromancy, and who's teaching him that. So like, yeah, this is definitely a hard fight, but like just watching your gameplay, we're not even like the most clicking that you just did was clicking your healer to heal him. That is it.
Because it completely goes against everything the game has been teaching up to this point.
That is just not true. You are just not playing the game right now. Like, or you are playing the game. You're just not playing the game to its fullest extent. Like we are literally barely clicking and whatnot. Crush fight and what's the exact verbiage that he said? I want this verbiage.
Goes against everything the game has been teaching up to this point. Formation and positioning, yeah, forget about those. The arena is closed off, so there's no...
Alright, maybe this is only in my version of the game, but you can actually path through those spikes, which you probably shouldn't be able to. That's probably not the goal of them, but those spikes behind you can actually path through them. In regards to formation, no, you can still put your people into a formation. You can still click and reorganize how your characters are standing. There is a unique criticism every time during cutscenes, or almost every time during cutscenes. It automatically sets your people into a wedge formation. It does it all the time. It's very frustrating. And it does it here in this fight. So if that's what you want to criticize, you can absolutely criticize that. But this game does not take away your ability to have a formation. It does not take away your ability to reposition. In fact, in this fight, you have to reposition in order to live. Like, this is not going against everything the game has been teaching. That is very, very silly. That is very, like, this is like actually, this is, again, and this is coming from someone that didn't use potions and refused to use potions for a long time, which actually goes against the game and what it's giving you. This to me feels like this is the first time that like we're coming across a challenge that we can't just run headstrong into and beat, and just be like, oh well, I repositioned before the fight and so I win. It's like, no, yeah, in this fight you have to constantly reposition. You have to move people around. You have to do that. And yes, that is a part of the game and part of what makes the game great. I'm sorry that you're not able to do it. Or you weren't able to do it in this video apparently.
No room to reposition, and enemies start spawning behind.
There's plenty of room down here to reposition. There's plenty of room to manually click people and move and whatnot, and to do that. There is plenty of room. There's only one skeleton that spawns down here, and that you can kill. And there's a whole bunch of archers. And here's something that I've seen you yet. I haven't seen you do. But something you can do is you can have different groups of people focus different enemies. And so archers, you notice, oh, hey, these archers are a problem. They're just shooting my guys down. So while your melees are being focused by their melees, so like how I would execute this fight is I'd have my melee, I'd reposition my archers and whatnot and put them back here as much as possible. I would try to kill the skeleton that's back here first. I would move my melees down here to kill this. I would try to not bunch up my backline with my front line because Krug Commander Gresh, he throws fireballs that deal AoE, and you don't want that AoE to hit your backline. But after you kill that first melee skeleton, the other melee skeletons aggroed onto your front line. So then you want to move your people to kill these archers in the back. And so you can aggro your people and aggro these archers and kill these archers, because killing the archers is more important than killing the tank melee guys. These archers are going to deal way more damage, way more consistently than the melee tank guys. and so you need to go around and like kill them. You could even like potentially even kill the dogs first before going back to their backline. But yeah, no, there's many different ways you play this fight. You can have your healer not use healing spells and use AoE damage spells to help you win this fight as well. Funnily enough.
Your party.
We could use healing potions. We could drink healing potions to win this fight.
Formation completely useless. The backline gets shredded, and there is no way to tank the damage. So, what's the solution? Potions. Like, a lot of
yes, potions.
So let's talk about health potions. Up until now, I figured that my healer could carry the team, and maybe if you had 2 dedicated healers, that could work. But dungeon.
Oh, okay. This is what, healing potions. This is 33. Start at 3350. Healing potions and healers. Healing. So there's like in the campaign, there are 4 healing spells that you're gonna be able to come across off the top of my head. 3 of them are nature magic. 1 of them is combat magic. So in nature magic, you have healing hands, then you have healing wind, and then you have major heal. Major heal is definitely late game. Healing hands is obviously early game. You get that, and then healing wind is you get that around the mid game. You get it. Healing wind you can use after, I think, Western Cross or after Glitter Delve, typically in regards to leveling. Maybe when you get to Glacier, but like from Glacier onwards, you have access to healing wind for sure. And so, to bear in mind, you are using the base level healing nature magic spell right now. You are using the base spell to heal in the late game. Healing wind is a giant AoE heal that you can use that heals everyone in your party. And it heals it's like a dot heal, I said dot heal, not damage. It's a hot, it's healing over time, and it's a very useful spell to use. A healing over time AoE spell, amazing. There's also battle healing that you haven't even touched combat magic this playthrough, but a combat magician can use battle healing to heal, and it's like a little bit stronger than healing hands. But it's not by much, because as you noted before, nature magic is a lot more healing, utility, and whatnot, whereas combat is obviously a lot more damage. Yeah, no, we are again, this just sounds like we have a presupposition of, oh, the nature magic is always permanently healing. That's all they do. Like, mages can deal mages have summoning spells, they have damage spells, they have utility spells, they have healing spells. They are not just damage, they are not just utility, they are not just healing, they are not just summoning. They are all of those things. And you can use all of those spells when you are a nature magician or when you're a combat magician. So you don't need to rely on healers. The game gives you as many healing potions because healing potions are the primary way that you heal. That is how everyone in the game gets access to healing. And then healing magic is just another option to heal. The fact that like the first time that you're like, damn, I need to go and I actually have to use these frickin' healing potions, is when you get to Krug Commander Gresh is just so baffling. It is so insane.
Siege expects you to rely on potions a lot. And honestly, it has one of the best potion systems I have ever seen. Most games, take Skyrim for example, give you full health the second you hit the potion button. Instant heal, full bottle gone. But in Dungeon Siege, your character actually drinks the potion. It has an animation, and they only consume what's needed. That means you're not being punished for using it early. No need to wait until you are hanging on.
It's kind of true and kind of not true. If you're a melee character and you're drinking a potion, you notice you put your shield and sword away. And what that means is you're easier to hit. Your shields have present block chances and whatnot, so like you're effectively tankier when you're not drinking a healing potion versus when you are drinking a healing potion. So you don't want to just sit there spamming healing potions. You do want to wait for your HP to drop down a bit to use a healing potion, because you want to maximize the value of your heal, you know, like, you still do want to do that, but, you know.
By a thread. It also introduces a cool gameplay trade-off. You can drink as often as you want, but during the animation, you can't attack.
Like, I'm just watching this gameplay, like, we are not trying to reposition anyone. I'm very confused by this. It's just, all we need to do is, like, control-click our archer and our mage here. Control-click, and you can reposition them around. You can do that. And even if they're being targeted, if you reposition in a certain way, your melees are going to get hit by the arrows instead of the people in the back line. Like, you can easily reposition these people around. Like, if we think that this is the base gameplay where it's like I select all my characters and I left click and then I watch what happens, we're not playing the game. Like, or we're doing the bare minimum to play the game, like the absolute bare minimum.
So you are choosing attack now or stay alive. It's clever, and I have no idea why more games didn't copy this. Okay, so
and I have no idea why you haven't been using it throughout the whole entire game. Maybe that would have motivated you to have your wizard deal damage instead of permanently casting heal, causing them to get underleveled. Maybe this would have caused your inventory management to have been a lot easier because you're not picking up potions and then not using them. Maybe you would have had more gold and you would have been willing to get more people because you'd have more gold because your inventory management is better. Like, this is just like a domino effect going on here of like decision that's like making your own play experience worse and then saying like, oh, it's the game. No, brother, it's you.
Going a lot better, but I think the ranged damage is just too consistent. I eventually decided to target their archers first, and hey, that actually worked.
Wow.
More importantly, I finally realized potions are cracked.
Wow!
Actually, it wasn't that hard.
With Commando Gresh dealt with, thanks potions, Fortress Croth is safe again. We take time to explore the area, resupply, and catch up on the lore. Apparently there's an ancient race called the Sek, thought to be wiped out centuries ago.
We've definitely been teased about the Sek before this moment. We've definitely been teased about their existence and about what the Sek are. We just don't read any books, we don't talk to a lot of NPCs, you know, it is what it is.
Spoiler, they're not. They've also
Hang on. Oh yeah, joke.
teamed up with a local race called the Droog, and our next mission is to subdue the Droog village to fully secure the fortress. I decide it might be smart to add another tank to the party, so please welcome Tiny Thor. We press forward and encounter the Droog. I am feeling confident. I've got my potions. I've got Tiny Thor. I am ready. We enter this desert biome and our mage dies instantly. This will become a recurring issue. What a weenie. The Droog archers are...
I wonder how our mage keeps dying instantly. Is it perchance that we're not positioning him correctly? I do wonder. And it's... Oh my goodness.
are way more dangerous than I expected. But we take our time, watch our positioning, and slowly start carving our way forward. And here's the thing, as we settle into a groove, I start to understand what Dungeon Siege truly wanted combat to feel like. It's not flashy, it's not chaotic, it's not some seizure.
As proven with the Commander Gresh fight, the combat is indeed chaotic. It is chaotic throughout the entire game. Like, you have to, like, you need to reposition, you need to pay attention, you need to engage in fights and actively make decisions. I'm like fairly convinced that this is easy mode due to the fact that we haven't been doing that and that we haven't been using potions. It's like, to call the combat in this game not chaotic is just, it's dishonest.
As we settle into a groove, I start to understand what Dungeon Siege truly wanted combat to feel like. It's not flashy, it's not chaotic, it's not some seizure-inducing, adrenaline-fueled dopamine rush. No, it's more like taking a long walk through the woods with your friends. It's therapeutic almost. After a long day, you don't want to be screamed at by some 12-year-old teabagging you in a Fortnite lobby. You just want to have a chill adventure, and that's exactly what this game offers.
So, what we said was what Dungeon Siege truly wanted combat to feel like. What you're describing is more than just combat. It is like the game environment itself. It is what it's presenting to you. That emphasis on journey, yes, I definitely agree with your point there. This game is definitely focusing on the journey, and from starting as a humble farmer, to quote the game, you start as a humble farmer and then working your way all the way up to be the hero of a kingdom. That is absolutely the core of this game, but that's not the combat experience. That's more so like the game experience as a whole. The combat experience is definitely chaotic. It definitely can be chaotic. Like, you have order through formations, but there's times where you have to break ranks, there's times where you have to reposition and whatnot. We can't just run into the enemies and expect us to win every single time. You know, we have to have strategies, we have to adapt. But yeah, so you captured, I think, one of the core pillars of the experience of Dungeon Siege as a whole. It's the journey.
And you know what? I like that. After fighting the Droog forces, we finally reach the village we're meant to subdue. There is some resistance, sure, but most of the townsfolk are ready to surrender. We meet their leader, who finally explains why they sided with the Sek, the ancient evil race from centuries past.
We are victims all of these horrid Sek.
Turns out the Sek have been searching for a hidden chamber beneath Castle Ebb, and we need to get there before they do.
The Sek Dungeon Siege may soon be underway.
And just like that, the final leg of our journey begins. But wait, before we can reach the castle, dragons. Apparently the developers realized, oh shit, we forgot to check the dragon box. So now we're fighting a dragon.
Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. It's just not even funny. Dragons and developers. So, throughout this game, there are hints of dragons via, like, dragon bones or drakes, hydrax, you know, there's a whole bunch of dragon, like, adjacent enemies. Like, there's, in the ice caverns after Glaciern, you will see a giant corpse of a giant skeleton of a dragon, I should say, not corpse, but skeleton of a dragon. You fight drakes in the ice caverns, and before here, like outside of the village that you just were in, you fight drakes, because there's a whole lot of drakes out there. And this is actually a side quest that you get. Upon exiting the Droog village, there is one lone Droog who is attacking a drake, and He's literally on the main path of the main quest. You'd have to literally ignore him and run past him again, just like the guy outside of the swamps who was sitting there dying in the one path into the swamps. Like, you'd have to ignore him. But you walk up to the Droog who's attacking the Drake, and he says, "Hey, can you help kill this dragon? There's a lot of drakes that are surrounding and attacking the village because they're getting riled up because of the dragon in Dragon's Wrath. And if you kill him, the drakes won't be coming down and messing with the village because they're getting chased out by the dragon." You know, so like there is a purpose why there's a dragon here narratively that does make sense. Dragons were a thing that were thought of throughout the game more than just this moment. This isn't like it's a joke. Oh, I'm just kidding, you know, like I'm just making a joke. It's just like, dude, no, it's a wrong joke and it's not really that funny. Like, it's jeez. But again, here's another side quest that is only brought up because to pick up the side quest, it is literally on the main route of the main quest, and you would have to purposefully ignore the prompter to not get the side quest. So I find that very funny.
For reasons. But honestly, it's not a bad fight. The visuals are good, the formation matters. You actually feel like you're managing a real battle the way Dungeon Siege intended. 8 out of 10, would slay again. After the dragon, we move through a mountainside cave and find ourselves in a familiar looking area. It has the same aesthetic as the beginning of the game, which instantly made me feel nostalgic. And of course, there is something behind the waterfall. 10 out of 10, game of the year. Outside the castle, we meet Lord Bollinger, and he shall henceforth be known as the Fourth Tank.
By all the powers that be, a friendly face.
But we already had a full party of 8, so we let Silverhoof go. It hurt more than I expected. I felt more letting go of that mule than I did any other party member. But we were approaching the end, and I figured we didn't need as much carrying capacity going forward. Rip Silverhoof, you were the real one. We reach Castle Ebb and yeah, looks like we might be a tad late. The place is crawling with sec. We push forward, clearing room by room, until we reach the throne room and the mage dies. And of course, we don't have a resurrection scroll.
Yeah, we're just...
Son of a bitch.
We're just running through, you know? We're just running through... right click or left clicking enemies, and I like just that's the game. I'm glad at this point, like, you know, you're going back, we're buying another resurrection scroll, but these sorts of things, like, you know, that relief that you felt when you came across a town, a settlement, or a shopkeeper, part of that relief is making sure that you're properly supplied, as you said. That's what resurrection scrolls are. That's what potions are. You know, that's what the items and equipment are. You know, yeah.
We stock up and return again. And continue clearing the castle roof. Ouch. See, anyone can die. It's not going to be a problem as long as the mage is up. He's the only one who...
That's actually something that I just noticed. He hasn't said this, but
it's not going to be a problem.
He found the hotkey, if you look here, to switch through his spells. But doesn't mention that system. That's really interesting. I actually, you know, not many of the reviewers do mention like the hotkeys to cycle through spells and whatnot, and I think it's something that's important to mention, and I'm very surprised that reviewers don't mention it, but because that's really important when you're a spellcaster, is to make sure that you can cycle through your spells or use different spells on demand. Yeah, I just caught that. This is my third time watching this, and I've only caught that now.
He's the only one who has a spell that can resurrect. Whereas if the mage is dead, then someone has to use one of those scrolls. And if you don't have one on you, then you're pretty much just screwed. With the upper floors cleared, we begin our descent into the lower levels of Castle Ebb. We face off against all kinds of strange, twisted creatures. Bro, that thing straight up just has nipple piercings. Eventually, we find the king imprisoned in a cell. He explains that there is a chamber beneath the castle, the Chamber of Stars, which contains powerful artifacts that can help us in the final battle. And of course, the ancient evil is waking up. The barriers are weakening. The world is doomed. You know how it goes. We grab the key and press on. But at this point, my inventory is a disaster. This just shows how valuable poor Silverhoof really was. Rest in peace, you glorious pack animal. Then we run into the local dungeon keeper, and honestly, I have no idea what to say about this guy.
He's a good boy, isn't he?
Bro, what? Like, what?
They wanted to know where the Chamber of Stars was, those sack devils, but Swanee wouldn't tell them.
We finally reach the Chamber of Stars.
I just, at this point, it's just like, okay, we see all of this technology and whatnot that's going on here. Granted, the castle above is somewhat standard medieval fortress, like in aesthetic at least. I'm not going to say in layout. It's a very wonky layout, but you know, this is technologically and magically very high level. So I just recall the comment made about like the goblins being the most advanced, and it's like in some ways yes, but like also, like, there's always been a backdrop of, like, higher magic being hinted at, especially with Merrick's staff.
Brimming with ancient weapons, armor, and mysterious artifacts. We can use maybe 10% of it. So naturally, we sell the rest to the sketchy trader locked up by the king, because that makes sense.
It's just good business.
I remember this being the last trader before the big fight, so I stock up on a mountain of potions. I tuck Flair safely out of harm's way and head off to stop the end of the world. We arrive at the siege. Wait, didn't they attack from the outside? Isn't this the opposite of what a siege is? Too late to ask questions.
I can actually help with that. No, during sieges, using a little bit of my history background here, like digging underneath walls and fortifications is quite a common thing. Granted, that is not what the Sek are doing, because in the story, if we're actually paying attention, they are sealed down here. So if we're going to be pedantic and say, oh, they're not sieging the castle when they are attacking it from beneath in an area where they're actually like warded off from the rest of the world, it's just like, okay, all right, sure, man. But no, they are attacking, they are sieging a castle, they are taking it over. You don't need to be explicit, like, they're still attacking it from the outside, they're just going underneath, which historically, I know, look, ancient Greeks focus on this tactic, Hittites or Assyrians, you know, like, people definitely have used digging as a way to circumvent walls. There's historical precedents to that, you know? And attacking from underneath the fortification, or circumventing the fortifications of a settlement, you know.
Questions now. I'll say this, I like the atmosphere here. The deeper you go, the darker and grimmer it gets. Eventually, we reach the final platform, and there he is, the big bad guy. He gives his inevitable villain monologue. Apparently, it's all Merrick's fault. The plot makes as much sense as the potion economy, but we're not here for the story, we're here to fight. As a fight, it's...
So yeah, if we were actually paying attention to the story, I guess this is Gom, so we'll take note of that. So we'll do 4215. We get to Gom. And then Merrick's fault. So yeah, the issue with this is Merrick losing his staff is sort of the catalyst which starts all of this, if we're paying attention. The wards are weakening because Merrick loses his staff. And Merrick's staff was what was keeping these people in check, like keeping the Sek away from reality. So, you know, that's the issue. The reason why the Krug were looking for magic items was to look for this staff, because if this staff falls into the wrong hands, the sect will be free. The goblins are a third party. They want the staff to power their factories, and that's how the staff goes missing in the first place, is because of that issue. But, you know, if we're actually paying attention to the story, we would know that. You know, it's tough. It's tough.
Not terrible. The boss swaps aggro, but you have time to reposition. He cycles through a variety of attacks that range from single target to AoE, but you always have time to mitigate the damage. He switches to phase 2, classic, and he starts summoning creatures into your back line, forcing you to react, reposition, and ensure that—
I'm also just like noticing this right now. Throughout this video we've made the decision to not include any of the base music of the game, or to not include much of it, when we actually complimented the music of this game and said that it's like it's underhyped, you know, it's underappreciated. The music in this fight particularly is amazing because it is like, I don't want to say it's like a remix sort of, but it implements some of the core chords of the first song that you hear, of the first track that you hear, rather, when you start this game. When you start the track or when you start the game in the farmlands, that soundtrack going dun 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 dun, yeah, that chord sequence is implemented in this track, and that further emphasizes the point of the single player game, this journey. You know, it's that nostalgia that you're getting when you're outside of Castle Ebb and it has the same texture pack. It's the same thing. It's literally like making you think about, wow, we're at the end of our road right here, and this is an epic fight, but I can do this because I've come all of this way from the farmlands to here. I've come all like that. I can hear that chord sequence that reminds me of the very first starting area when I was just a humble farmer, and now I'm dressed up in battle plate with a kite shield and an amazing sword, and we're fighting this guy in the pits of hell. You know, like but you know, I need to hear the stock music or whatever this is instead of the music of the game.
Your front line is taking the damage. At one point, we lose our mage, and we have enough room to retreat, revive, and continue the fight. The music is there. The visuals are there. But as
the music is there and the visuals are there, but we don't actually listen to the music. We don't actually listen to the music of the fight itself. Like, I can't.
As a final cinematic end to the game, I don't know. It feels meh. There's no real tension. No sense that this fight—
There's no, I mean, we had a character just die, and you had to like go and reposition and do that. Like that did just happen before our eyes. And again, I wonder if you're playing on easy mode, as I suspect. You're definitely not playing on hard, I can tell you that much. But, I mean, I don't know. To say that there's not tension in this fight is an interesting take.
Is the culmination of a long journey. It just happens, and then it's over. The evil is defeated. The world is saved, and I decide to make my way back home, giving me time to reflect on what the game was. Dungeon Siege isn't perfect. Its combat, while strategic, is often seen as too passive. Its world is vast and seamless, but oddly empty.
With the way that you play this game, it's very passive. It's definitely very passive with the way that you're engaging with this game. These are closing thoughts, I guess.
The leveling system offers freedom, yet punishes experimentation. The story is nowhere, and the final boss, well,
saying the story is nowhere when we're not talking to NPCs, when we're not reading lore books, when we're not, you know, paying attention. It's a take. The story is very bare bones. The story is very generic, very bare bones. But there is a story there, and there is thought to the events that are going on in the game. And if you actually pay attention, it's just like, oh wow, there was something here. And I agree, there's an area of criticism for this, but to say it's nowhere is not it. You know, it's saying, hey, there needs to be more of this. You know, there, like, let's see the world more through the characters' eyes. Let's see, when we fulfill the goals of one of these characters, how they react. You know, let's see more side quests, even though there are already some in the game. Let's see more of these things. Let's have characters exposit to us a little bit more. You know, like, let's do, like, random NPCs, like, which they do in this game. There is exposition when you talk to people, but you can still have more of that. You know, you can still have more lore books. You can still have more environmental storytelling. You know, but say it's nowhere. It just, it's such like a common theme amongst reviewers to say that the story here is nowhere, and it's just like, I'm sorry that we're not like paying attention to what's going on. Like, I'm sorry that, like, we're not fully paying attention, because, like, we're not even giving accurate criticism of, like, where the story has its shortcomings.
Checks the boxes, but it doesn't exactly leave a scar. I completely understand why Dungeon Siege couldn't stand up against behemoths like Diablo or Baldur's Gate. Despite all of that, I love this game. Not because it's flawless, but because this is the first game I ever played co-op, using a LAN cable that was way too complicated to set up. The first time I saw my sister's character moving around in my game, controlled by her in real time, blew my mind. This was the first game I played on something other than a massive CRT monitor, and I remember thinking how beautiful it looked, even on my tiny 14-inch LCD screen. I spent hours playing the demo, imagining what the full game must be like. As I walk back through these ever-familiar farmlands, I realize something. Dungeon Siege may be dated, some of its systems feel hollow, its story may be a bit of a mess, but to me, it's not just a game, it's a memory, and sometimes that's enough. If you enjoyed this deep dive and want to join me on some more nostalgic journeys through old gems, consider subscribing. I've got a couple stories and plenty more to tell.
Alright, that is Pixels's ZA's review of this game. Yeah, this definitely motivated me to this. If you couldn't tell, this is a source of great frustration in regards to talking about this game, because, you know, no game is perfect, so like there's no need to say that, but the flaws that this game does have narratively or in its systems or with the AI are just like not actively or not accurately being covered here. This definitely gives the vibes of, I am just picking up this, like, first impressions. I am picking up this game, I'm clicking through it, and then I end the game, and this is what I think. It doesn't actually feel like a review of, like, actually just like, yeah, this is the game, this is what happens, you know, here's this, we're playing through the whole thing. And when we go through, we'll see, yeah, no other reviewer struggles with using potions, so that won't be a source of frustration in the future. But other reviewers do equate the story of the game as being like nothing, which it isn't. You just gotta pay attention, and you gotta actually talk to NPCs and read lore books. Reading, I know it's horrible, but there are other issues, like talking about like the leveling and experimentation. These are like common things that people do talk about. The linearity bit is talked about both positively and negatively as well, but we'll sort of see what the other reviewers say and what sort of trends come out. Do you want to say goodbye? You want to say goodbye to the people, Atlas, before I hit stop recording and end this video? Can you wave? Okay, you're gonna wave. Okay. Bye-bye now.